In this video, I'm gonna try to summarize all of these books. Can you believe I've actually read almost all of these running books? And I still remember the running books that I first bought as a high schooler. Run with the Champions, great profiles of pro runners. These are some of the workouts that pro runners do. Daniel's running formula, the OG training manual, and then of course this beauty, which is nearly a quarter of a century old. There was actually a time in my life where I would only be reading running books. It's amazing that I ever got a girlfriend. But what I want to do in this video is talk about some of the biggest lessons, the biggest principles in these books, so that if you want to get better, you will have a framework for doing so. And get better really just means improving your capacity, whatever that might mean for you. So maybe you want to run an entirely new distance, maybe your first ultra. Maybe you have a specific time goal in a race, like maybe a sub-4 marathon, sub-3 marathon, or any other time goal. Or maybe you just like to run more every week or go a certain period of time without any injuries. This video is going to give you that framework so that you can improve your capacity for running and get a lot better. Improvement rule number 1 is to always be developing the aerobic metabolism. This is likely one of the more important lessons from every single running book that I've ever read, and that is we've got to be strong from an aerobic perspective if we want to be good runners. If you want to get faster, you need more endurance, because endurance allows you to maintain and extend the speed that you already have. And as University of Colorado at Boulder cross-country coach Mark Wetmore likes to say, we don't have any secrets to our training. All we do is we prioritize the patient development of the aerobic metabolism. So let's work on running more. Let's work on being consistent with our long runs. Let's include a healthy dose of aerobic workouts in our training so that from season to season, we are gradually running a little bit more over time, and we're gradually extending the length of our long run over time. So that if you look at yourself today, you should be able to say, wow, I can run a lot more today than I was able to a year ago, 2 years ago, and especially longer than that. Improvement principle number 2, no matter what book we are looking at here, no matter what training plan is including here, no matter what author we are reading, if you want to get faster, you have to train fast. And I'm often astounded at runners who don't include much speed work at all into their training. If you want to become a better runner, we have to run fast regularly. Now, notice I didn't say we have to run hard regularly. Running hard has its place, and in most training plans, a significant portion of the workouts will be hard. But it's not enough just to run hard once a week. We have to run fast more regularly, and we can do that by incorporating strides, fartleks, hill sprints, and other types of workouts into our training that aren't very difficult, but that do allow us to run fast. And by touching speed, not necessarily becoming totally immersed in speed, but just by experiencing a little bit of that speed, we are going to get our body more and more comfortable running very fast. Because if we think of sprinting and running at maximum intensity as a skill, then we have to practice it regularly just like any other skill. It is an act of coordination. It is a graceful movement that we have to practice. So if you're not running strides or hill sprints with a fartlek or something similar at least 2 days a week, I think you're shortchanging yourself, and you'd be a much better runner if we were to add this kind of work into your training. So if you want to be fast, let's run fast regularly. Now, a quick disclaimer. I'm not actually summarizing all of these books. I'm also pulling from the 220 plus conversations I've had for the Strength Running podcast with some of the best runners, coaches, PTs, physios, and mental performance consultants there are about how to improve. And our third improvement principle comes from those conversations, and that is we have to race frequently. And let me tell you my bias. I started running on a team in high school. I ran cross country, indoor track, outdoor track. I went to college. I ran cross country, indoor track, outdoor track, all 4 years in both high school and college. And one of the things that that experience teaches you is that racing well requires racing frequently. If you don't have a good race in the 800, the mile, the 2 mile, the 5K, the 8K cross country distance, or the 10K, or any of the little races in between there, you can just try again next week. And I've written more than 2,000 custom training plans for runners all around the world over the last 11 years. And one thing I've learned is that a lot of runners choose their goal race, that big important A race at the end of their season, and then they dedicate 20 weeks to getting ready for that one race. And that's putting all your eggs in one basket. Now, if you're training for an ultra or a marathon, you sort of have to do that because you can't run too many of those very long distance races. But if you're racing the 10K or even the 10 mile or less, there are many more opportunities for you to race more frequently, because racing is a skill. And if you want to race fast, you have to work on that skill. You have to learn how to intuitively pace yourself. You have to learn how to respond to surges from your competitors, how to surge against your competitors, how to get off the line, how to close hard and kick to the finish line. There's so many different aspects of racing that take skill, and there's only one way to get it: with a lot of experience. There's nothing in this book about taking extended periods of time off from running. And you know what? There's nothing in these books about taking extended periods of time off from running either. And that brings us to improvement principle number 4. Consistency is probably the only secret sauce there is to successful running. If you want to become a better runner, it has to be something that you do regularly, that you're not taking long periods of time off from the sport just because you're busy or just because you have other things going on. If running is important to you, then you got to make it a habit. You know, my college cross-country coach told us that running isn't really a sport, it's a lifestyle. And I've never forgotten that because it's 100% true. He actually had a rule. If you wanted to run cross-country in the fall, you had to run indoor track and outdoor track in the winter and the spring. And his whole point was that running is a lifestyle. It is not a sport that you do for 3 months out of the year or even 9 months out of the year. Progress takes time, and the whole nature of the sport of running is that your results compound. So we've got to keep doing it. It's almost like saving. You've got to keep saving monthly on a regular basis so that interest compounds and grows over time. Your fitness will do exactly the same if you train consistently. So while there is no secret to becoming a good runner, consistency is likely the only secret sauce to successful running. Because after all, if you want to become a good runner, the first thing you've got to do is run consistently. Our 5th improvement principle is probably one of our more important principles for runners who really want to embrace running as a lifestyle and who really want to get better. So if you're someone who really has performance goals, you want to get faster, you want to run a new distance, you want to stay healthy, then improvement principle number 5 is we must cycle through seasons regularly. Now, seasons just means, typically a training plan. You have your training plan, it's probably a 12 to 20 week plan, and you go through your plan. And one of the questions I get almost all the time is, what do I do after my training plan? Well, the cycle then begins again. And if you start thinking in terms of cycles, you'll be a much better runner. So once you go through your training plan, what do? Well, you run your A race, your goal race. Let's take about a week off, recharge the batteries, fully recover, get back some of your motivation and drive to train. Let's not forget the psychological side of recovery. And then you can start some easy running. You have a couple weeks of getting back into the groove. You start increasing your volume, start introducing some easier workouts, and then you can start another training plan. And that is the life cycle of a runner. We always must be cycling through seasons. Rest and recovery, easy running. Then we can start some more substantial training, which culminates in your goal race. And if you were to repeat this process over and over and over and over again, you become a much faster runner because you're always trying to improve and get faster. That's the entire point of a training plan, after all. One of the best examples of the cyclical nature of running is looking at a high school or college schedule for a distance runner. And I've talked about my bias here, but this is the environment in which I grew up in. I grew up in the track and cross-country team environment where you are always cycling through season to season to season. And it all started in the summer. The summer was our base phase of training. That was what set the foundation for the fall cross-country season. Now you had base training, then you had your cross-country season, then you took time off. And the rest of usually December was just easy running, getting back into the swing of things. You do a couple introductory workouts, but again, nothing too challenging. Then we would start indoor track, and then training would ramp up. You would have that whole track season. You'd have a little bit of a break in between indoor and outdoor, but they're fairly short seasons, so you can go through them both at the same time. And then you take time off. Then you have a couple easy weeks as you get into your summer base training again after that spring outdoor track season. So we can see for 8 years, it was the same predictable pattern, year after year after year. And we were always trying to get better at certain points of the training process. In the summer, we were trying to run higher overall weekly mileage. We were trying to get strong. We were sort of doing all the little things that would then enable the speed and hard workouts to come in the fall season. And then of course in the season we were working more specifically on speed and on the skill of racing. And if you were at nothing else from this video, if you were to learn the cyclical nature of running, I think this is probably one of the most important points because it will take care of a lot of the other principles that are included in all these books. When I first started running in 1998, what got me hooked on the sport was my own personal progress. I started improving, and that really made me feel good. I loved the fact that I could keep track of my workouts and my races. And over time, you could even graph this and you could see the progress in real time. It was addicting, and I absolutely love it. And it was funny, I actually talked to one of the best milers in the world, Nick Willis, for the podcast. Little teaser, it's dropping this Thursday, so subscribe to the Strength Running Podcast. And he talked about how he actually likes getting, well, he doesn't like getting injured, but he enjoys the process of getting back into shape after an injury because of that very reason. The progress of getting better, the improvement that you experience from being out of shape to getting in shape and just getting faster and improving your capabilities as a runner is very addicting. And that's part of the love of the sport. It's why I fell in love with the sport. And I'm always trying to get runners to get over that hump of maybe the first month or so of training. Because if you can do that, then you're gonna start experiencing progress, and that is what's going to get you hooked on running. So check out the episode this Thursday with Nick Willis, and I'm going to include a lot of resources under this video on improvement. So if you want to read more running books, if you want to check out the podcast and learn from some of the world-class coaches and physios and sports psychologists and everyone else I have on the podcast, then I certainly recommend it. It's been enormously helpful for me in my coaching and running career, and I always say, knowledge is a competitive advantage. If you want to improve, learn more about the sport, and you're going to get there. It's going to help me put all these books away.